I am in the middle of an oil change on my VSTAR 1100, and this is an absolutely perfect time to check and replace the fluid on the rear brakes of this motorcycle. So let's get started. If you're interested in knowing how to change the oil and filter on this motorcycle, link is posted here above. Due to the location of the oil filter on this bike, the front exhaust pipe is removed to replace the oil filter, and this allows for a very easy access to the reservoir for the rear brakes. I'll point out that it is not required to remove the exhaust to do this job, not at all by any means, but it does make for an easy video to produce, right? Because it's very easy to see what's going on. So I'll say, you don't have to remove your exhaust to do this, right? But you can see everything that I'm doing because I have no exhaust on this bike. And I don't even have to remove the cover. And we can already see that it's probably time to do a flush on this, right? Brake fluid is clear. This is already looking a little bit dingy. We're gonna inspect this further, right? And brake fluid doesn't cost anything, and calipers cost a lot of money when you have to replace them because it gets moisture in it and it starts to rot out and pit and leak, right? So why not just pull this through, get fresh fluid in, and be done with it?
Harbor Freight sells these kits for like next to nothing. There's no excuse for not having this. Why would you not have this in your garage if you have like a motorcycle or a car and you're paying somebody like $150 to do this job? I could not understand it. We're going to use this kit. Go to Harbor Freight and get one, and then come back and watch this video, because you should have a compressor too.
Because this is a documentary, we're going to take a sample of this fluid. I'm not just going to remove it. So I'm going to do that now. Point out that brake fluid is extremely nasty stuff, and you do not want it to get on your paint. If it gets on your paint, wash it off quickly. It will cause the paint to bubble up, and it will remove the paint from metal. Okay? So I've made everybody watching this aware of that now. Be very careful with brake fluid. So I've removed the cap, and then I'll remove this top cover. I'll be taking a sample with a straw and putting it into a white cap. Yeah, we could see that this brake fluid has an orange tinge to it. It means it's not terrible. It's not damaging the brakes right now, but it's already starting to turn. It has moisture in it, right? It's supposed to be clear. It's not like some that I've seen where it's like dark brown, right? It's not a horror story, but this is signifying that it needs to be changed. It's done. It's finished. And this is what it looks like from the top down in the reservoir. That was against a white background. There are two schools of thought here. When you find a system that's completely corrupt, like a barn find, and you have all sorts of terrible things in the reservoir, what you want to do is evacuate the reservoir before you pull it through, right? This is not the case. This is just fine, and the bike is driven, and what we're going to do is we're going to pull everything through all the way out to the caliper, right? So if this was a situation where there were all sorts of terrible things in the reservoir, we would be pulling from this direction to empty this, and then we'd be pulling back. Here's our exhaustive list of tools for the job: brake fluid, 8mm spanner, and the brake bleeder. That's it. We're going to remove the rubber protective cap from the bleeder valve. There it is. This leaves the valve exposed to us. Drop the box side over like that and leave it there, with obviously in such a way, of course, that there's going to be room to open and close this. It's obviously no good if you can't rotate once it's on there. I hook the bleeder right to the saddlebag like this. It hangs just like that. This side of the bleeder will be fitted onto the end of that valve. And there it is sitting on there. Then I connect my air tank to the brake bleeder, just like that. I'm gonna have my tank fill up off camera. It's really loud, and obviously there's no need to record that on video, so I'm gonna come back once my tank is filled up and has adequate pressure. I've cleaned the top of the bottle before I start working with this. The compressor is fully charged and may come on during this video. Also, I'm going to point out that generally you would most definitely have to use a funnel to fill this reservoir. In this case, I do not, because I have the exhaust pipe removed. It's very easy to put the bottle over this and fill this. I would not recommend trying to fill this without a funnel if the exhaust pipe was here. So what I'm going to do is this. There's a lever here that starts the flow of air. When I hit the button, you can see it actuates it, right? I'm going to start that first, and that's going to start this suction. Once that suction goes, then I'm going to turn this to open this valve, right? And then that's going to start the pulling. When that pulling starts, this is going to start draining. And as that starts draining, I'm going to go over here to this side and start filling it, right? And I'm going to fill it and make sure it pulls some more until this is flowing clear, right? Because it has to pull all the old stuff through as well as some of the new stuff to purge out not only what's in the lines, but whatever's in the caliper as well, right? So we want some clean fluid in there. When we're done, what I'm going to do, the first order of operation is to close that valve over here. When the valve is closed, then I can release this and shut this off, right? And then we're good. Then I'm gonna go and top it off. So let's do this now. This is extremely difficult to do on camera, so I'm gonna do my best. Having now filled it all the way to the top with fresh fluid, I am going to repeat the process and pull that fresh fluid all the way through, removing this older fluid from the unit. The cap rubber is pushed outward if only to be cleaned, then it's folded back into its operating position, like so. I had fluid just above the lower mark, you know, maybe a couple of millimeters. That's just fine. Mine would normally be sitting up straight, but my bracket has been loosened for another job, obviously, but I lock it in a position just to check that value. I'm now going to place this cap back on before I depress the brake pedal a couple times to make sure all the air is purged. If you don't, brake fluid could squirt up out of the hose and just spray everywhere. The cap is back on now, everything's screwed down tight, and I've cleaned up the bottle. Brakes don't even feel spongy because no air was introduced into the system using this method with the pneumatic brake bleeder. So everything really feels good. I don't see any air bubbles making their way up in the bottle either. This is really the best method to do it. The old school way involved two people, somebody pumping the brakes and the other one opening and closing that valve over and over again. Really have come a long way in brake fluid changing technology. So now I'm going to remove this rubber fitting from the valve, just like that, and I'm not going to let it fall down. I'm going to hold it up in the air. I want to turn this on one more time as to purge everything in the hose. I remove the spanner, and I put the rubber cap back on. I think to truly get an appreciation of all this, we need to take a look at a before and after photo of the reservoir for the rear brake and see how much the color has changed of that reservoir since we've conducted this maintenance activity. You could see it almost looks entirely clear in the bottle now and no longer a reddish brown color. That's very nice indeed. Before you leave though, if you feel like sticking around, while I have all the equipment out, if you want to click on the link above right here, I will be doing the same exact procedure to the front brake calipers as well. So you can have a look at that procedure if you want to do that. Of course, it is always important to test your brakes after you do any work on them. Make sure that they're operating correctly, that they feel good, that they're not spongy. Recheck the levels. Check everything is done right. Check that nothing is leaking before you take a motorcycle onto the open road. Safety first. If you're not sure of your work, take it to a qualified repairman and have them overlook at it and correct everything you've done. I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching.